appreciate Dr. Gray coming this evening. And so from there, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Greg, and I do have the handout.
Oh, you did? Does
Yeah,
everybody have it?
Either way, yeah.
Can I have one?
It's not as pretty. It's not as pretty as your brochure there, Greg. So.
Well, my name's Greg Gray. I've known Dr. Stricker. Anybody not have this?
They don't have that pretty brochure though.
Okay, I'll pass it around.
Yeah.
I've known him for about 10 years. I've been superintendent at Brighton Area Schools for 6, superintendent in Owasso Public Schools prior to that. I was in Owasso for 9. That's where I met John. And when I got to Brighton, we had the same issue. We had a $16 million deficit. So I inherited a $16 million deficit. Our operating budget's a little larger than yours. We're about $63 million now, but we were struggling. So, crisis creates initiative, I would say. And we found some private schools in our area that wanted us to service them. And I don't know if you know or not, so I'll give you the history on it. Shared service is a program that's been around for decades, probably 30, 40 years. And it's the opportunity for public schools to provide non-core services to private schools. And when you do that, you take over their teacher, and then you get a portion of an FTE for the day. So right now, we started working with schools in our county, and then we expanded counties, and our program has grown to roughly $11 million in gross revenue. We employ 175 private school teachers, now they're public teachers, and we actually service about 11,000 private school kids, and in 50 different schools across the state of Michigan. The reason we're here tonight is because we can only provide services in our ISD and ISDs that touch us. And then as we continued to look at the law, what we found was you could actually go to ISDs that don't touch you, but what you have to have is a cooperative agreement in place with a public school in that particular ISD. We've done this in a number of different other ISDs that don't touch our ISD, and the latest one, we just had a joint cooperative agreement with Merrill Public Schools, and now we're servicing Saginaw County and the Bay City area. We're looking at one in Traverse City right now, we're looking at one here with you all, and it's beneficial kind of to everybody. For the private schools, as you can see in the brochure, what happens is we go into their school, we find all of the non-core subjects that they teach, and we ask them if they want us to pick up the cost or employ a teacher for them. That teacher becomes an employee of Brighton Area Schools, and at that point, when kids come into their class, we generate a portion of the FTE. That's why when I say total revenue for our shared service program is about $11 million. We have about 1,500 FTEs, but we service 11,000 kids because it's portions of the kids throughout the time. And so what it's allowed private schools, you might think, well, why would private school want to do this? Well, we pick up their salary, we pick up their benefits, we give them money for supplies, and we still have a small profit margin in there. We profit at about 40%. After we pay the teachers, after we have our administrative costs, after we pay for supplies, we have about a 40% profit margin. So in the counties that didn't touch our ISD, we've created cooperative agreements. We actually wrote to the state, and we had Attorney General's opinion on this because we didn't know if we could do it or not. And under the law, obviously, we can. I'll give you an example. Jackson Public Schools. We have a cooperative agreement with Jackson Public Schools. We service Jackson Lumen Christi and a number of other schools in Jackson, and we share 10% of our profit margin with them. What would Algonac have to do? What does Jackson have to do? Nothing. All you do is collect a check from us prior to June 15th every year, because we manage the teachers, we pay the teachers, they run through our payroll system. The benefits for the teachers at the private schools are pretty beneficial too. They end up back in the retirement system. We pay them the same salary, pay them the benefits, and again, we give them supplies. One of our larger schools down in the Detroit area this year, they saved $1.4 million going through us in terms of shared service because we picked up the cost for, I think it's 17 teachers, and with the money we give them for supplies and their benefits. So in the Jackson one, this year we cut them a check for I think about $130,000, and they literally did nothing in relation to it. So it's been a very beneficial program. The private schools enjoy it as well, and the parents there, you might think, well, is there a rub there? Not typically, because they're finally getting something for their 6 meals. So right now, private school parents still pay 6 bills to the state of Michigan, and they don't really generate anything from it. They're paying tuition, they don't ever get to touch that money, so they do get a benefit from that. In terms of, does it create competition with Algonac and that, it really doesn't. People don't even really know that we employ their teachers, other than when they get their paycheck, it says Brighton Area Schools on it, as opposed to the private schools, whichever one it is. Like I said, we're in about 50 different private schools across dozens and dozens of districts, and in, I think, 8 or 9 counties now. So it's become a big program. We're actually the largest shared service program in the state of Michigan in terms of generating the 1,500 FTEs, and it's been real beneficial to the different groups that we've done with it. But
With your preliminary research, how many private schools do you?
yeah, 13 in your county. We're still pulling FTEs. You count elementary different than you count middle school, different than you count high school. And high schools are probably the biggest profit margin in terms of that, because you count a .17 for every kid in the class. Elementary kids are a little smaller at a .2 or a .25, depending on how you do the schedule. It doesn't really take into account your schedule or anything in relation to that. It all depends on what we can offer. We can only go into private schools and offer what we offer as a school system. Now, our school system has 6,000 in-district kids, $1,500, so about 7,500. And everything we offer, private schools can offer. And remember also that AP classes are considered non-core. So a lot of the high schools, especially private schools, have picked up AP classes because they couldn't offer the plethora of classes that we offer. I think we have almost 20 AP classes. We've gone into some schools down in the Detroit area in terms of we offer Hebrew and all sorts of different languages. A lot of schools want us to offer foreign language, computer science. We've bought computer labs for different schools. It just really depends on what they want, and it's individual to each one of those particular schools. So every time we go in and sit down with their administration and kind of work through the process, you know, at first it's kind of a learning curve, because if they haven't participated, they think it's too good to be true. And then once we get by that, and we get to the money we're going to save them, and what they can actually offer, which will enhance services to their kids, and their parents feel like they're getting something for the 6 meals they put in, it usually ends in a real positive way. We've had 100% retention since we've started.
So for the percentage of the FTE
Yep.
comes from the funding that goes to the private school?
Comes from the state of Michigan.
Right, that goes to the private,
It actually comes to us,
okay,
because the teachers in their classroom are Brighton area school teachers.
okay.
So when the kids, let's say you're a teacher at St. Mary's,
Yep.
we'll just make up a school, and you teach computer science. Every kid that walks through your door for that hour is considered a public school student.
.17.
.17 if it's high school, and lower as you get down to the bottom. So if you have 150 kids go through your class that day, and you do it over a certain number of schools, it can add up over time. Typically, salary schedules for private schools are less than public schools, so that builds in a little bit of profit margin that you have. We don't have overhead costs, because we don't keep the buildings. We don't do anything with that. It's strictly money in, money out the door.
So your Title I and your Title II money could be used in this program?
If they're getting service in non-core, it can only be in non-core. So it
So
can't,
like the AP,
AP you could.
yeah.
None of the other ones I don't think you could, because they wouldn't be considered non-core. There's a big list of non-core that the state puts out. And then again, every school we participate, if they want foreign language in the 3rd grade, let's say they want German in the 3rd grade, we would have to offer German in the 3rd grade the exact number of minutes that they offer it for them to qualify their FTEs.
I noticed the contract was for 3 years. Are there any schools that you've worked with thus far that, you know,
Have backed out?
I'm pretty conservative to where, you know, maybe go with 1 year the first year and then extend.
Yeah, the only time we've ever done, we patterned that contract after the one we have with Jackson.
Okay.
You wanna do a 1 year, you can do that as well.
You know, that way.
Actually,
Comfort
with
level.
all of our private schools, we don't even have a contract. We figured our service to them is our contract. So if we don't service them well, they're gonna leave us. And so we've never I think we have 1 school out of the 50 that we have a contract with, because they wanted to have a contract.
But with us though,
With you, if you wanted one, you could do one, if you wanted to do a trial.
and I'm not suggesting that, I just want to.
You also have an out clause in there, if you chose
Right,
an out
right,
clause.
right.
Yeah, to protect, but again, it's just an opportunity, to service those particular.
Because-
And
kids,
this
generate
is
some
not gonna be a hard question, because
Yep.
you're selling a product here, I get it, but why would we sign a contract with you? Why couldn't we on our own
You could,
set up
absolutely you
similar
could.
kind of?
I'm just gonna tell you, you could. It's very complicated and there's a lot of startup. Because you have to have the administrators in place, the secretaries. It took us a while to build to the point where we were. The first year, we generated 85 FTEs. We didn't make hardly any profit. Next year, we generated 485 FTEs, 1,000 the next, 1,500 the next. It's very difficult. And if your schedule doesn't have the same things they want, you'd have to add it to your schedule, so you'd be adding cost to your district. That's where a lot of schools, because we get that question too everywhere we go.
Of course.
And a lot of, the answer is, we've been doing it long enough that we've kind of built perfect muscle in terms of it. And it's really hard for other people to jump in the game.
So do you know of anyone in St. Clair County that is doing this kind of
No,
on a small scale?
not yet.
I think East China might be doing it.
They could, yeah. Rod Green's one of ours, he lives in Brighton
Well,
now.
he's no longer.
I know, he's not there anymore, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, competition's also a good thing.
Greg, in terms of pupil accounting, does that
We do
fall on Brighton?
You literally do nothing. That's about it.
We're just the people that say,
You have a
hi
cooperative.
Brighton, we're partnering
Allow
with
you in
you
the county.
to allow you to work in St. Clair County.
You're our access point, to put it, no, I don't know a better way to say it, you're our access point to the county, in terms of that. And, beyond that, all you do is collect a check. You do nothing else. The teachers in those buildings have no affiliation to Algonac, they're affiliated with Brighton. We do the evaluations, we hire and fire, we cover their benefits, we cover their retirement, you just don't do anything.
So nothing that comes on our, anything at all on our audits?
You wouldn't even see it.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
So what's the timeline on this? If we wanna do this, when do you need us to?
we're kind of in the recruiting season right now. You know, we could reach out to those 13 schools pretty quickly and give you a pretty good idea who's in and not. It will start small. Jackson, there was already a pretty well established, like your question, ma'am, Beth. Jackson had already done the program there, Jackson Public, and we just did it better. And it's grown for us then. Jackson still participates, we still participate. There are some schools that we go to that we only offer 2 of the classes, and another public school offers the other 10. Because they're happy with it, but they might not have these classes that we do offer. There are some classes that, some kind of out there classes that different schools have wanted, we run through Michigan Virtual. And we can do that as well. So really, it's endless in terms of what schools might want. So we've done it every different way. We've done it with other publics, we've done it without other publics, we've done it in competition with publics, we've done it without competition. And it really, we don't try to come in and ruffle any feathers, we just come in and look for opportunities to generate some revenue. And like I said, I've known John a long time, and I know you guys have been dealing with a deficit like we have, and that's no fun, obviously. So any way to generate revenue and maybe enhance your own system, I thought of him first before I went to anybody else.
I thought maybe a next step would be to talk to Gary Fletcher, our school attorney,
Yeah.
over here on, just to run a contract by Gary, and if the board even wants to pursue this, certainly not asking for a
Yeah, I think-
proceeding. I
I'd
know.
like to have a little more information and.
Sure.
and get-
What
get
more
a
though?
better
So, I
understanding.
agree, so
I
in
mean,
between
To
now,
go to a contract right now, I think is.
We're not
I'm not
asking for that.
suggesting that,
No,
I'm not suggesting.
That's why I asked, what's the timeline, when?
We can go all the way into August and still set schools up.
Okay.
So August is about the end, because we have to pull their benefits, we have to get them on MyStar, because they take attendance like we take attendance. We have to set up their teachers, we have to hire them, we have to go through a orientation process. So I would say August is kind of the drop dead date in terms of that.
What would be additional information, because that's, I agree with you. What, I guess, because I don't wanna let
Sure.
my board down, so you leave here today and I say, hey, I'm gonna bring it as an action item in July. But what additional information would I be getting the board? Really, I just wanna lay that out now while I have all the
Sure.
board members here. Because if we send them nothing, and we're back in July,
Probably the biggest question we've had with the other schools that we have cooperative agreements with, were, what's our liability, like Alan asked, a very good question. What does it have to do with us other than collecting the check? Those are probably the biggest questions. Does it create some kind of weird dynamic in the county?
maybe we could do reference checks.
Yeah,
with
yeah, we have a bunch of schools with that.
Chuck, anything you had in mind as far as what you've heard so far as work?
Just some research on it. And
Make
sure,
a reference
and
checks and.
15-minute presentation and
Well, sure.
go. That's not.
Well, and I would suggest, he has my email and all that, any of them come up, email me directly, I'll get you the answers to
So
that.
any school in the ISD, in St. Clair County ISD, can enter this agreement
Any
with
private school,
any private.
not
school.
charter to public, this is strictly private school.
And you said there's about 13 private schools in there?
13, we looked it up, yeah.
But the partner with you, though, any Marysville school district, the partner.
Yeah,
So-
if
I asked
you wanna do it yes.
I asked him
somebody
the
else
same
could.
question in the
Yeah.
office, and granted, because I said, I asked the same question, I said, so please say no. Could
We-
you go
we
down to
could-
Marysville, and they could say yes, he said, yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
Yeah, you just need one partner, in a county, and you need one cooperative agreement. The schools, back when this started, a long time ago, used to have to ask their home district for a release. That's gone away since we've written the Attorney General's opinion. So, back in the day, let's say, give me another public in your area here.
Port Huron.
Port Huron, let's say Port Huron, is the home district and they have a large Catholic high school in their area. And the Catholic high school wants to go with us for shared service. In the past, they would have had to ask for Port Huron to give them a release. That's all gone away in terms of that, so now they don't even have to ask for a release. So, would there be an opportunity? Sure, you could go with any school in St. Clair County, or all of them could say no, and then you move on to the next county and do something different. So, again, it's not to say we're gonna do that.
and that's precisely, back to the introduction, why I brought Greg in this evening, getting this in front of you, whether we bring it in July or August.
Yep.
I prefer at least the board have an opportunity to look at this, we'll do our homework, send more information to you,
Yeah.
but because I don't wanna, on the other hand, lose an opportunity, for additional, like I introduced, additional revenue that could save
By
the
then,
equivalent
too,
of a teaching position.
well, by then, you know what, I'll have I have a whole department next to my office that does this now. We have, like I said, we have 180 teachers in this program, 12 administrators, 4 secretaries, accounting people. I'll have them run the numbers so I can get you a realistic, if we got all the schools, this would be your profit for the year. And again, it's gonna start small, cause most people, a lot of times the schools are very conservative, and they like to just dip their toe in the water on it. They might let us do 1 or 2 teachers. And then after the year goes by, they come back and say, who else can you do? Because, again, for the one school near us in Detroit, it's $1.5 million of profit every year for them. $1.5 million. That's a much bigger area, obviously, and a bigger district. So the scale isn't gonna be there, but, most people start real small, and then once they see it's gonna be okay, and, we're not telling them what to do. A lot of times we hire the people that are already in their district. They just have to be highly qualified, because we're a public school system, they run through our same audit in terms of being highly qualified, so anybody in that classroom has to be highly qualified under state of Michigan rules and regulations. And, otherwise we can't come here and teach, just like we do here. And so that's kind of how it's worked. Again, this is not a sales pitch, it's a low pressure. The only reason I'm here tonight is because I know John real well, and we were gonna try to move into this county one way or the other, and I thought, well, I have an opportunity for some revenue, and we'll get you those numbers on that in terms of what it would actually happen.
Greg, I know you covered this, I just wanna, the teacher is a school employee?
Correct.
Are they on your teacher scale?
They're not part of our, so, that's a great question. Okay, so how do we make 40% profit? Our teachers that are part of the shared service program run through a different sector of our organization, and they're not unionized.
Contract,
Yeah, they're contracted service. That's a great question.
but still highly qualified.
Still highly qualified, yep, and they have to have their tests done and
Yep.
all that kind of stuff.
When do we get paid?
Usually it's prior to June 15th, so we're sending out checks right now. Cause we go through and you get your first Wednesday count, you got your second Wednesday count, we add those together and then we send a check. I think I just signed the $130,000 check, I think it was last week, and sent it off to Jackson.
Yeah, they do.
You get it in June. We send it in June because you're closing out your budget. You'd know ahead of time what it would be, so you could actually build it into your budget, but then you can, bring it in as a receivable in June. You have till July, past July anyways, because of the auditing. That's typically what we do for people like you did that. And again, that was the original contract, so if you wanna vary from it, if you wanted a partial check and a partial check, you could do that too, but most people like to wait for it.
I was just curious.
Yep. But again, it doesn't matter to us. We're gonna write the check anyway.
Any other questions? What I'll do is I may have it as an information item again, June 22,
Right.
and then maybe possibly, depending on any input from additional information, maybe a July approval.
July, and that would be, give these folks plenty of time from the third week in July.
Yeah.
To give you all of August to.
We'll start working on it anyways, and I'll shoot the information to John in terms of what it could generate.
Okay.
And again, remember, it's gonna be lower in the first couple of years, and then it builds, and it becomes sustainable, and you can count on that revenue.
Thanks for making the drive.
Yeah, I can miss you all.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Consolidation budget update.
Should be a good one.
Amidst challenging news and a challenging year, Lori ran some updated numbers for us. Basically what I told my, I have Monday meetings with my office staff here, and I told them, because I can tell the story now, because it's in the past. I had to tell you a year ago, driving away from the June board meeting here, back to New Lothrop, I really didn't know what we were gonna do other than, I knew our deficit was the equivalent at the time of a 10 to 15% pay cut. Because everyone I would talk to would say, you need to close buildings, but don't close this one. You need to, I remember the conversation like that. May close this one, well, should we? Well, no, we can do that this. And really it came down to, it was at the time a 10 or 15% pay cut. Once the budget flushed out, per Brian's research on the last sheet here, the equivalent pay cut, what this consolidation is annually going to save us would have been a 15, I repeat, a 15% pay cut. And so, when Lori ran the numbers, I was pleased to see that, if you look at the first sheet there, the anticipated annual savings, when I presented the consolidation, was $952,000. The actual is $1.3 million. If you turn the page, and part of this is and I appreciate Evan coming this evening to present 2 recommendations for construction. So we were off on the annual savings, but off to $400,000 to be good. And that, by the way, I want to stress is annual savings. The expenses is one time, and of course that's a huge difference. But our expenses are a little more than anticipated, primarily due to the playground and concrete work and additional electrical work. Once we really took a look at repurposing a lot of our rooms to accommodate the consolidation, and but anyway, we can see our expenses are also the original 205, and now it's 406. Now, do note that does count the transportation at 60,000 and moving expenses at 30. I do believe we will be under that. At this time, we're looking at only adding 1 bus route, not 2. So that's roughly half of the 60. And I don't believe our moving expenses will be 30. But again, I'm conservative, so I'm going to show a higher number and come back the other way. So anyway, I wanted to present that. If you go to page 3 there, as we look at the big picture, with the consolidation savings, and you see my little professionally handwritten note there, with the state aid anticipation, we're looking at that we did not budget for about a $230,000 increase to this budget. So if you, I'm smiling again, we've dealt with some tough news this past 9 months. It's nice to present that, hey, you know what? Per Mike's, what we talked about with the balanced budget next year and the fund equity, you can see if we can plug in the 230 after that's substantiated with the state, we're darn near a balanced budget next year. On top of that, as we start to dial the numbers in, I really think we'll end this year at probably around 4% fund equity. That's what I'm hoping. So with those two factors, everything said, here's my summary. If we end this year at 4 or 5% fund equity, and we have a balanced budget next year, we are now carrying over the 4 to 5%, which puts us closer to reaching that 3 to 5 year, trying to get back up to 10%. We're halfway there, almost already. That's good news. In conclusion of my story, I would not have told you that driving away from this meeting a year ago back to New Volker, other than the last page there, other than about a 15% pay cut. I would not have told you we'd be sitting here looking at this. So that's just a little update. I'll do the same update for the community on TV and so on, June 22nd. Same thing that you're seeing here. But I wanted you to know this as we're looking at recommendations tonight that Evan's going to present, or answer any questions basically as we move forward with the construction as we head into summer. Any questions?
Why are there only 8 teachers listed here?
Oh yeah, that's because I didn't want to. That was the original. That was the original. So I didn't want to tamper with that, so people didn't think I was changing data. So that's the answer. That was the original proposal. And if you see it adds up to the 952, that was original. Good question.
Well, the actual is 313.
Yes, that is correct.
I'm good.
Okay. With that said, I guess how do you want to do? You want to go ahead and say the action item, and then Evan can answer questions.
We'll do the motion, and under the discussion, we'll have Evan present to us.
Alright.
So we'll need a motion for the subscription.
You guys squeeze back there.
Hiding over here.
You're fine.
Somebody wanna make a motion for that? Alright, I'll make a motion that the Board of Education accepts the bid of Graham Construction in the amount of $134,800 and D. Kramer in the amount of $36,000 for general trades / demolition, selective demolition work and mechanical work related to consolidation construction projects. Somebody needs the support.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported, is there any discussion?
We have a couple of community people, so I want to take the notes too, so I want to make sure I know these are the items that Evan has been presenting on for the last, I don't know how many months. And so this is nothing new. This is just the formal bid was sent out, and now we have the bids in. So I want to make sure the board and